Right now, in a quiet neighborhood you'd probably drive past without a second glance, a guy is out mowing his own lawn. He's driving the same worn-out pickup he's owned for over a decade, drinking the same cheap coffee from the corner gas station. His neighbors assume he's got some unremarkable desk job. In reality, he's sitting on $14 million. And almost nobody knows it. Not the people next door, not his hairdresser, not even some members of his own family. Here's the detail that should really catch your attention. He didn't build that fortune by chasing the spotlight. He built it by staying completely out of it. For years now, every influencer, every flex culture video, every thumbnail with a sports car parked in a driveway has taught us that wealth is supposed to be loud. That if you're not flaunting it, you probably don't have it. That idea might be the single most damaging myth to come out of internet culture in the last decade, and it has quietly wiped out more people financially than any economic downturn ever could. Because while one crowd was busy performing wealth for an audience, a much quieter crowd was actually building it. This video is about that second group, people who could buy out the entire room and never bring it up. People whose actual bank balance has nothing to do with what's on their bumper. By the time this ends, you'll understand how they think, why staying quiet works in their favor, and why the loudest person you know is probably also the one with the least money. Stay with me because the fourth point coming up is the one that'll completely change how you view every wealthy person in your life. Before we dive in, if you've ever felt like you're falling behind because everyone online looks richer, flashier, and further ahead than you are, hold on to this one idea for the next 15 minutes or so. Being visible and being wealthy are not the same thing. Honestly, they're often opposites. This isn't some lecture about staying humble for humility's sake. It's about strategy. When it comes to real wealth, silence isn't random, it's intentional. It's a system. And once you notice it, you won't be able to unsee it anywhere. Let's break it down. For roughly the last decade and a half, the internet has operated on one basic equation. Money equals visibility. Flash the watch, show off the car, post the view from the rooftop suite. The algorithm eats it up, so people keep doing it, and an entire generation grows up thinking that's genuinely what having money looks like. Here's the catch. Wealth you can see is usually the most unstable kind. A leased vehicle, a rented villa for a single day of content, a credit card dressed up as a lifestyle choice. The more impressive something looks on your feed, the more likely it's financed, borrowed, or staged purely to get the exact reaction you just had. Meanwhile, real capital, the kind that grows on its own, survives downturns, and gets passed to the next generation, almost never draws attention to itself. It's parked in index funds. It's tied up in a small business that's been steadily profitable for 10 straight years. It's sitting in property held long enough to become boring. It's in retirement accounts nobody bothers screenshotting for social media. There's an old saying among private bankers: the richest clients are usually the hardest ones to pick out of a crowd. Not because they're embarrassed, but because showing off wealth offers almost nothing in return and comes with a mountain of risk. Lawsuits, scams, family drama, becoming a target. Quiet people aren't quiet because they lack confidence. They're quiet because they've figured out something the rest of us are still catching up on. Attention comes with a price tag. It isn't a prize. So what's actually happening inside the mind of someone who has real money but doesn't live like it? First, they see money as a tool, not as part of who they are. For most people, net worth quietly becomes their identity. They feel a need for others to know about it because their self-image is tangled up with their bank balance. The quietly wealthy cut that cord a long time back. To them, money is simply fuel that buys freedom. The freedom to walk away from a bad job, a bad relationship, a rough year. It's not a medal you show off. Nobody parades around a hammer. You just pick it up and use it. Second, they've realized that chasing status is a game with no finish line, and it's exhausting. The second you start performing wealth for others, you've entered a race that never ends. There's always a bigger watch out there, a longer yacht, a more extravagant trip. Status chased outward is a treadmill that speeds up the instant you feel like you've caught up. The people who genuinely win financially tend to step off that treadmill early because they eventually realize it was never measuring anything real in the first place. Third, they've learned to embrace being underestimated, and honestly, they enjoy it. Getting underestimated might be one of the quietly powerful advantages a person can have. Nobody bargains hard with the guy driving a truck that's older than his kids. Nobody assumes the woman in the thrift store cardigan just wrapped up a six-figure deal. That gap between how someone looks and what they're actually worth doesn't embarrass these people, it protects them. It keeps the wrong kind of attention and the wrong kind of people away from their business. Fourth, they've made peace with the fact that recognition might never come. This is the toughest one for most people to swallow. Quietly wealthy people are usually completely fine knowing that almost nobody will ever find out what they truly built. There's no confetti, there's no viral clip, just a number in an account that keeps climbing year after year, seen by practically no one. If you need applause to feel like your effort counted for something, this way of living will feel unbearable. But if you don't need that applause, it might just be the most peaceful path to building wealth that exists. Let me sketch out a picture for you. This isn't describing one particular person. It's a pattern that financial advisors and researchers keep describing over and over, almost like the exact same character keeps popping up in different towns under different names. She's 52, works as a school administrator, drives a Honda with roughly 140,000 miles on the odometer, and brings her lunch from home most days. If you sat beside her at a diner, you'd guess she was doing okay, maybe watching her budget a little, and nothing more than that. What you'd never guess is the investment account she opened at 24, the one she's contributed to automatically from every single paycheck for nearly 3 decades, never once skipping, not even during the years when money was genuinely tight. You'd never guess about the duplex she picked up in her 30s that's been generating steady cash flow for 15 years running. You wouldn't guess she's sitting on almost $2 million, built almost entirely on repetition, patience, and an almost total absence of financial chaos. Nobody at her workplace has a clue. Even her own grown children only have a vague sense of it. That's not secrecy just for the sake of secrecy. It's simply what naturally happens when you never needed anyone's approval along the way. Let's get into specifics because staying quiet while getting rich isn't just an attitude, it's an actual behavior pattern. Here's what it actually looks like day to day. The car stays plain, not because they can't upgrade, but because a car is a depreciating asset that contributes nothing to compounding wealth. A paid-off, dependable, forgettable vehicle does far more for a quietly wealthy person's net worth than any leased luxury car ever could. The cash that would have gone toward a monthly car payment quietly gets funneled somewhere that actually grows over time. The house is decent, not showy. Often it's the exact same home they purchased 10 or 20 years ago, now mostly or completely paid off. They're not upgrading to a bigger lot or a fancier zip code just to keep pace with anyone else. A modest, paid-off home might be one of the biggest financial advantages a person can have. It's also one of the least Instagram-worthy. Their job title has nothing to do with their bank account. Plenty of quietly wealthy people aren't executives sitting in corner offices. They're electricians who own a few rental units. They're dental hygienists who started investing in their 20s and never stopped. They're mid-level managers running a small side hustle that quietly earns more than their actual salary. No magazine is writing a feature on them, and they couldn't care less. Their spending is deliberate, not hidden. This part matters. Being quietly wealthy doesn't mean living cheap or deprived. It means their money flows toward what genuinely matters to them personally. Maybe that's their children's schooling, maybe it's travel, maybe it's simply peace of mind, and away from anything purchased mainly to be noticed by others. The spending is happening. It's just pointed toward value instead of an audience. They rarely, if ever, talk numbers. Ask a quietly wealthy person what they're actually worth, and you'll typically get a joke, a dodge, or a sudden change of subject. It's not shame driving that response, it's experience. They've learned that once people know your numbers, how they treat you changes, and almost never for the better. Relatives start asking for loans. Friends start expecting you to cover dinner every time. Acquaintances start seeing you as a walking wallet instead of a person. Now here's the piece I promised earlier, the one that reframes this whole conversation. Staying quiet isn't passive, it's an active form of risk management. Visible wealth invites visible problems. There's a well-documented pattern among lottery winners and newly famous public figures who burn through massive chunks of their fortune within just a few years. Usually it's not one catastrophic investment that does it, it's the moment people find out. Family loans that never get repaid. Old friends who suddenly resurface right after the windfall becomes public. Lawsuits from people who smell an opportunity. Salespeople who suddenly know exactly how much extra they can charge. Quietly wealthy people dodge almost all of that by simply controlling who knows what. If nobody's aware of what you have, nobody can pressure, manipulate, or exploit it. This is the exact reasoning security experts give wealthy families when they advise against posting locations, purchases, or even the names of their kids' private schools online. Being discreet isn't a paranoia, it's just smart defense. There's also a real negotiating edge here. Whether you're buying a business, a piece of property, or even haggling over a used car, the seller's whole approach shifts the second they sense money in the room. Looking ordinary isn't accidental for these people, it's leverage. They land better deals specifically because nobody pushes hard against someone who looks like they're counting every dollar. And there's a social payoff too. Relationships formed when nobody knows your net worth tend to be relationships built around you as a person, not your bank account. Quietly wealthy people often have a surprisingly clear read on who their genuine friends actually are, simply because money was never part of the equation to begin with. Let's flip the lens for a second, because the contrast here really matters. There's a specific financial trap that exists almost entirely because of social pressure. Spending money you actually have purely so people believe you have even more than you do. Economists call this conspicuous consumption, and it's remarkably good at draining real wealth while manufacturing the illusion of having plenty. The math doesn't lie. A car payment that vanishes instead of compounding for 30 years isn't a minor setback. It can amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars lost by retirement once you factor in what that same money could have earned sitting in the market. A house bigger than you actually need means a bigger mortgage, bigger taxes, bigger insurance, bigger everything for as long as you own it. None of that builds wealth. All of it just performs wealth for an audience. That's the bitter irony sitting at the center of this entire topic. The people who look the richest online very often have the smallest actual net worth, because every dollar that should have been compounding quietly got rerouted into looking like it already had. The quietly wealthy figured this out early, often the hard way, and simply chose to opt out of the whole performance entirely. So, if you actually want to move in this direction, not for secrecy's sake, but for what that discretion protects, here's where it genuinely starts. First, separate your spending from your sense of self. Before making a purchase, ask yourself one honest question. Am I buying this for myself or for the reaction it'll get from other people? There's no wrong answer here, but you need to actually know which one it is. Second, automate the unglamorous stuff before you ever touch the exciting stuff. Retirement contributions, your emergency fund, any debt carrying a real interest rate, all of that comes first. Automatically, before a single dollar goes toward discretionary spending. Quiet wealth gets built on systems that don't rely on willpower. Third, practice not announcing your wins. This one feels genuinely awkward at first. Got a raise? Keep it to yourself. Paid off a credit card? Don't post about it. Made a smart investment move? Keep that one private too. You're building a muscle that almost nobody in today's culture has. The ability to feel genuinely good about your own progress without needing anyone else's applause. Fourth, let your lifestyle stay one notch below what you can actually afford. This isn't about deprivation, it's about margin. A car, a home, a lifestyle that sits comfortably under your technical means gives you the single most valuable financial cushion there is. Room to absorb a rough year without it turning into an actual crisis. Fifth, protect your numbers like they're a genuine competitive advantage, because they are one. You don't owe anyone a rundown of your finances. Not coworkers, not extended family, not the acquaintance who casually asks how much you actually make. A vague, friendly non-answer counts as a complete response. None of this requires you to already be wealthy to start. It's actually the mindset that tends to produce the wealth in the first place, not the other way around. Here's what I want you to genuinely sit with once this video wraps up. Somewhere in your life, right now, there's someone you've probably underestimated. A coworker, a neighbor, a relative who drives that same unremarkable car year after year and never brings up money once. There's a real chance that person is exactly who we've been describing for the last 15 minutes, and you'd have absolutely no way of knowing because that's the entire design of it. And maybe, just maybe, you're closer to becoming that person than you realize. Not because of what's currently in your bank account, but because of how differently you're starting to think about all of it compared to 17 minutes ago. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to see your answer in the comments. If you were quietly building serious wealth right now, completely off everyone's radar, with no one around you having the faintest clue, would you actually be able to keep that to yourself? Or is there some part of you that needs people to find out? Be honest about it. Drop your answer below. I read every single comment, and I'm curious which side of this you actually land on. If this video shifted your perspective on money even a little, hit subscribe, because next week, we're going even deeper into exactly how these people structure their finances to stay completely invisible to everyone, including tax authorities, legally and ethically. You won't want to miss that one. Until then, stay quiet and keep building.